Hey, it's Taylor from Rant and Medicine in Bad Places. We spent the last few days training fire, EMS, and law enforcement officers from multiple agencies in tactical emergency casualty care. Throughout this training, we were emphasizing how trust is built in the training environment, and this is where we are building that bridge for law enforcement to understand EMS's capabilities and EMS to trust in law enforcement to know that they are committed to them as part of the rescue task force team. So every time you train, every single rep you do is an opportunity to self-identify your weaknesses or have them pointed out to you. And if mistakes are not identified and improvements recommended, it may be due to a lack of training intensity, which I don't think anyone has ever said our course is short on. It's more than likely an issue of there just being a lack of instructors not having more or varying experiences than the students, which makes me want to really drive home the point to always vet your instructors and figure out what makes this person qualified to teach me. Now, if you aren't familiar, Tactical Emergency Casualty Care, or TCCC, it was designed to essentially give responders the training and tools necessary to provide immediate on-scene medical care to successfully stabilize trauma victims. Basically, TCCC takes the guesswork out of tactical medicine, and the NEMT is constantly revamping their recommendations based on the ever-evolving data coming out of the military. Unfortunately, with the current climate and events taking place across the globe on the military and terrorism front, mainly the events in Russia, Ukraine, Middle East, and China, to what seems to be our own economy on the brink of collapsing with just the insane, crushing debt we have created. Not to mention, this past decade has seen just an incredible increase in civil unrest situations here on the home front. And it seems like we're just headed to a time where all these events are just going to come together, or at least cross paths, and become situations we encounter more and more. So we all need to be prepared to have this become our reality. So I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are familiar that, TCCC and rescue task forces have kind of become the hot topic, which everybody's looking to get training on. And I was trying to figure out where to start. So several factors affect the integration of civilian medical personnel in the tactical environment. Innovation is complicated, and every team is always going to face its own hurdles. Unfortunately, the training and creation of rescue task forces is a violent event driven. And for whatever reason, there are far too many heads of agencies out there that somehow or other, they still hold that it'll never happen here mindset. I'm sure I'm speaking to a lot of you out there can relate to that. The events in which rescue task forces would mainly be implemented are situations that need to be very, very regimented. Proper initial training and continuing training need to become a norm. And an important note here would be that when we typically think of rescue task force utilization, we automatically think of some sort of shooting or attack type incident. And in reality, the concept was created with the intent to use in any high threat environment, which could be, the threat could be compromised of cars, the threat could be compromised of a collapse, fire, or any unknown situation, because even things like technical rescue are incredibly dangerous. And due to these incidences being ongoing high threat situations, it gives providers a framework for just balancing the risk versus benefit and limiting medical care, separating the nice to-dos from the have to-dos until a scene is safe or safer, or a patient is someplace safer. Just a quick side note here. We've done some extensive case reviews on the majority of the most notable active assailant incidents in our country, whether as part of our teaching teams or as part of our careers within our respective agencies. And we've identified some key points that we like to go into depth on during our classes. One of the topics we've identified and cover is where some basic rope capabilities would have been appropriate to utilize, whether from an access or an egress standpoint, And based on our findings, we collaborated with Anderson Rescue Solutions in the development of a kit designed specifically for these type situations. It's called the Rapunzel kit, which also incorporates the ARS rescue strap. A lot of people are very familiar with those. And that is what you are seeing a lot in these video clips, in case you were wondering. If you have any questions about it, just leave it in the comments so everyone can benefit from it. And possibly some of the students who went through the class, who got to utilize it, may even be able to weigh in or answer your questions or just give their general thoughts about it. So in its most boiled down form, TCCC is simply just a set of evidence-based and best practice trauma care guidelines, but specifically for civilian high-threat pre-hospital environments. The actual skills used to care for casualties in high-threat scenes are pretty standard, and most people are doing them. You know, your basic hemorrhage control, opening an airway, sealing a pneumo. It's the type of thing where, you know, imparting basic trauma skills isn't really what the TCCC courses are about. We most likely don't need to teach somebody coming into one of our classes, you know, how to put a tourniquet on. That's universal at this point. It's really the operationalization of the TCCC guidelines and when you do things based on what's going on around you. There is also the Tactical Combat Casualty Care Program, TCCC, and there are some people out there teaching this in lieu of TCCC, but I don't know for the life of me why that would be done, because the TCCC course was not intended for the civilian application. That course comes from the military PHTLS textbook, a version that was specifically written for the military medical community, because the civilian PHTLS textbook has a different focus and application. Now with that, TCCC is certainly based off of the TCCC program, but anyone with significant operational experience understands that the language changes in the TCCC program as compared to the TCCC program are critical. As with the incident command system, you know, common operating language is important for interagency responses to complex threats. And there are some very notable differences regarding guideline terminology, trauma care recommendations, and operational focus, you know, as a whole. More specifically, things like the fact that the military allows for what we in the civilian population would consider, you know, basic life support providers to perform some pretty invasive skills, like needle decompression, for example. They are also administering Hexten and doing pre-hospital antibiotics, which I am completely 100% on board with, and hope that that becomes a more commonplace in our world, as it would be a great benefit in a lot of situations, most notably to me when I'm acting as a provider in really just austere environments. Also, patient populations and tactical guidelines had to be addressed, and hence the need for a program design for the civilian population versus a program specific for the military. Okay, well, that will do it for now. I hope some of you out there found that useful, and as always, we'll see you next time. Be safe.